Welcome, everyone. I'm Arjun Metre. I'm an investment director at Intel Capital. For those of you who don't know us, we're the strategic investment and M&A arm of Intel. We invest about $400 million to $500 million each year in traditional VC deals. So we think we're one of the most prolific tech investors out there, and building our AI portfolio. So it was very apropos that we found some great guys who are actually applying AI in their media and entertainment businesses. Before we dive in with intros, a couple things. The context for this panel and it came from an early discussion with Molly. On the venture side, we see 20 pitches a day in the AI space. And if I look at maybe 100 companies, maybe 2 or 3 of them are really delivering on the promise of AI. So this is a good opportunity for us to talk about the opportunities and challenges in AI. So that's a bit of the context. I think we're going to have a few minutes to be able to do questions as well. So think about some questions you might want to share with the panelists, and we can use some time for that. And then just a quick show of hands. Who saw the session earlier this afternoon? All right, only a handful. Okay, great. So it's not Groundhog Day for most of you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to kick off with taking an introduction, share your bio, talk about what your company's doing, and then talk about how you're using AI in your company, and be shameless. So let's start on the end with Jon.
Thanks. I'm Jon Smelzer. I'm president of ScoreStream. ScoreStream crowdsources live local sports content via our mobile app. We do that globally, similar to how Waze crowdsources traffic. We use the crowd to get the data, and then we use machines to rationalize and structure and authenticate that data. And then we syndicate it back out to our mobile app, but also to a number of third parties like Snapchat, thousands of Buffalo Wild Wings restaurants, hundreds of local media partners. We're talking to gas stations, we're talking to grocery stores. It's sort of, once people realize they can have a live local sports score that's not available anywhere else, they want it. The thesis is that those sports used to be covered by traditional media, particularly print, and as print is dying and increasingly dying, the crowd is going to be the source of that, and we think we've got the platform for that, so we're really excited. I'm a 25-year digital media guy, mostly sports, very much on the business side and the commercial side, and so sort of in a unique position of taking a new technology to an old business, and I've been living that for the last 3 years, and it's been interesting.
Awesome.
My name is Jon Kraft. I was Stanford 88 and a lifelong entrepreneur. One of the companies I founded was Pandora, which I like to say is the first commercial AI application for entertainment industry. I'm currently running an technology accelerator here in Los Angeles called LiftOff. We help early stage companies build and launch their products. And one of the projects that I've just started working on separately is bringing an amazing festival from Berlin to Los Angeles that blends science and art in a really cool way. And last year's festival was actually based on AI, so I've been looking at all the content from that festival and figuring out a schedule for which content to bring to LA this year as we build up to the 2017 show in November.
Doug.
Great. Thanks, Arjun. Doug Fidaleo. I'm Principal R&D Imagineer at Walt Disney Imagineering Research and Development. R&D is part of the Parks and Resorts, which is focused on our sort of theme park environments, or guest interactions and personalized experiences. And my larger focus is how we deliver personalized experiences with our characters to our guests. Our particular interest to this group, I'm looking at how to scale these very one-on-one special interactions that our guests have with our characters to really any guest and character. So looking at from both the AI and ML perspective, that's extremely important for everything we're doing. Both looking at the core sensor information, how you extract data, like kinds of data you extract and make sense of it, and then how you fuse that information and understanding of that information with the core creative content. The core is just amazing Disney IP that creates these unique experiences. My background is computer science, computer vision, machine learning, AI. Have spent outside of my academic career most of my time in technology leadership roles in entertainment-related companies.
Fabulous. Jonathan.
My name is Jonathan Kim. I split my time currently with JPL and BL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Beyond Limits, working mostly in AI applications and technologies, obviously on the more cognitive side of things. And also I run a company called Aicon, which is really trying to apply some of their AI learnings as well as technologies to bridge the gap between the world that our kids will be living in and what they should be learning now and how they should be learning. So my unique, I guess, kind of contribution to this group is that with JPL and BL, I spend most of my time working with oil companies, financial industries, and so on. So it's a very, very, very cold area, in a sense. It's all science, all data, where I get to really interact with parents and kids. And my other company, which is really where you kind of blend the AI and the creativity as well as education and content into it.
Great, thank you. Bill.
Yeah, so my name is Bill Klein. I'm the CEO of Rival Theory. I'm a software developer and an entrepreneur. I got my PhD in artificial intelligence working on linear accelerators for photons, working at Brookhaven and Argonne National Labs, which is kind of a direct path into the entertainment industry, if anybody's getting started. So I've had a number of software companies over time. In 2003, I got into entertainment by starting work in the video game industry. And in 2011, we formed Rival Theory to really create better characters for entertainment. We have a piece of software called Rain, which is an AI engine for creating characters in video games. It's used by over 100,000 developers worldwide. And today we have some new software called Sentio, which is about making intelligent virtual actors. So we're making actors that can be used in narrative storytelling experiences. They're completely interactive, and they're intended to sort of serve in the same place as a human actor in like a movie or a TV show or something like that. And what I'm really interested in is creating characters that use artificial intelligence to become your companions, to speak with you, communicate with you, and to become your friends over time.
Great, thanks, Bill. So just a quick calibration in the audience. How many of you have an engineering or computer science background? Okay, okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. So we can calibrate. We'll have some technology or technical discussion, but also keep it at a high level still. So people have been talking about AI for the last 20 years. Obviously now we're here at the conference. It's important. We're seeing applications in healthcare and in fintech and so on. What is the ROI that you guys are seeing, using artificial intelligence? Is it because everyone else is using it? Are you getting a distinct competitive advantage? One of you guys want to take a hack at answering that? Or John, you want to queue up on that?
Sure. Well, when you say ROI, if you mean revenue, we're pre-revenue, although that's quick.
As a VC, we like
that.
that.
Yeah, it's quickly changing, actually. For us, it was just identifying this gap. So, the downward pressure on traditional print publications. We knew our thesis was that high school sports and high school football in particular would be the leading edge of the business because it's so popular, used to be covered by print, and now print is dead. But we like to say that high school football is really just a proof of concept for us because it's a much bigger opportunity. When we first got into it, we pitched one of the big newspapers in Houston, and they said, we got 30 people who are doing this, and we don't need you. 2 years later, they called us back. All those people were gone, and they said, hey, do you still have that free sports content? So for us, it was just reacting to a gap in the market and an opportunity. We tried to keep it pre-revenue, free. We're trying to build an audience, but now we're seeing this demand, and really it's ancillary demand, it's retail demand, it's demand that we didn't even anticipate for content that people didn't even know they could get, and now it's suddenly seeming to be indispensable, and so we're feeling pretty bullish about the ROI right now.
Great. Anyone else want to tee up on that?
Well, I'll say I have an accelerator, so I work with a number of different companies, and one of them has started using AI in an interesting way. And one of the things that I find is really exciting about the current climate where we are with AI and why I think it's really hot is that you have companies like Intel and IBM who've invested literally over the last 15 or 20 years billions of dollars in this technology and are now making it available through APIs, whether it's Intel's Nirvana or IBM Watson, for entrepreneurs all over the world to take advantage of all of that technology and all of the data. And so there's an agency that we work with here in LA that does a lot of influencer marketing, and they started using Watson, I think about a year and a half ago, to match brands together with influencers. And they look at their social streams, what the brands are saying, what the influencers are saying. They feed that into the system, and they get really, really thoughtful results in terms of which influence would be a good match for which brands, and they're getting a ton of press for that, and making a lot of money and making some really good matches. So a lot of different ways to get value and ROI out of AI without having a PhD and having studied it or built core technology for a decade.
Doug?
So a slightly different flavor on ROI from my perspective. So in my role, I get the privilege of actually having the return being guest happiness, right? So we're delivering experiences in front of guests, and anything we can do to make that experience better is a huge return for us. Specifically, we did these recent sort of play tests with autonomous robot in the parks. And previously, this is the kind of thing where kids go up to a puppeted character or a puppeted robot, and you can't touch it, right? There's too much data needed for a human puppeteer to actually process it. But give this character the ability to respond to the environment in sort of realistic, safe, and exciting ways. And now you have, in this test, kids going up there and hugging the bot, banging on it, jumping on top of it, and this increases overall enjoyment for our guests, which is huge in return for us.
Oh, fabulous. Jonathan, Bill?
I think just adding to the R part of ROI, I think following what Doug's saying, I think often we try to justify the investment based on money or the cash that we get in return. But I could just cite you one good example where we could change. And this is the benefit of, I guess, working with technologies like AI. Often, if you go into some of the accounting firms and lawyers, there's a lot of talk about how you could apply AI to increase ROI. So that literally means saving cash or costs. From a company perspective, a lot of people will be losing their jobs. And that's the biggest fear that we have about AI and so on. And I think, unfortunately, that will happen down the road. That's going to happen. But the other one good example of where, as someone who works in the industry who could actually make really good decision, is one of the companies I was working with is an oil company, one of the big oil companies. And then we were having this incredible use case workshops. And one of the use case was actually how to use AI to drill more holes. So that we could get more oil and doing this. And then we had this hours of discussion how you could do that, from all the way from just analyzing pretty much anything from the sand situation and so on. But then one guy just kind of stood up and kind of said, actually there's one way to really improve ROI, to make our tankers and everything safer. Because every time one of those things go down, we lose $30 billion. So perhaps we should work on that. And that was it. And that was like one of the ways that you could actually improve ROI incredibly and use the AI technology that exists and do really good more than anything else.
Want to weigh in?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly that at Rival Theory, our ROI is a lot like Disney's, and so now, yes, I'm comparing my company to Disney. Our ROI is really about customer experience. So our use of AI is really about making characters that are more realistic, that can interact with you, and that really make people engage. So it's not really a monetary ROI yet. It's more of a customer experience ROI.
That makes sense. So let's double click on that a little bit and ask a question we didn't talk about in the last session, which is, what flavors of AI are you guys using? So, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, natural language processing, all of the mishmash of different flavors of AI. You want to tee up on that one?
Yeah, sure. So the problems that we solve are sort of complex because we're trying to, in a lot of ways, mimic human behavior. So we use lots of different types of AI techniques. We do use machine learning, deep learning, convolutional networks, all the stuff that maybe you've read about recently. We also use more traditional AI techniques, everything from symbolic logic to memory systems.
Right.
We have emotional systems. We do a lot of things that we roll in-house. We even consider sort of traditional algorithms and analytics to be AI when they do AI type of things. So we sort of throw everything in the kitchen sink at it.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. No, so it's similar to Bill. I mean, it's everything that's out there we use, and we use the most appropriate pieces. And I think the big component for the work that we do at Disney is also interfacing with the creative, and I'm sure you have the same issues there as well. You know, bringing in creative talent and having that mesh with the tools that are available.
Great.
See, Bill, Doug's just trying to compare his company to yours.
So actually, John, since we got you for a second here, collaborative filtering, give us your opinion on it, because I want to keep asking you about how you feel.
Yeah, no, collaborative filtering is a form, I think, an early form of AI, and for those who don't know what it is, it's when you track an enormous amount of data about what people are buying or what people are doing, and then you can see people who buy a certain product, what other things they tend to buy, and the more data you have about that problem, the better, the more information that you can give, the smarter, in theory, the smarter your recommendation is to the consumer. And so when we were starting Pandora is a music recommendation service, and before Pandora existed, Amazon was making recommendations when you were on their store about what CDs, what music to buy, and so we got a lot of questions about, do you use collaborative filtering? And we don't. We never use any collaborative filtering. I think we started to infuse a little bit of collaborative filtering later in the company, but we use something called the Music Genome Project, which is really less like AI. But for music, it's a much richer kind of intelligence in a way, in that we're really helping make recommendations about music that people would like inherently versus what other people who happen to like that liked. And one of the things that artificial intelligence does is it really starts to track recommendations to the most popular, the very, very top of the pyramid, which is the opposite of what we wanted to do in our mission at Pandora. So you've made me admit that really it was less artificial intelligence than I like to believe.
No, you guys are pioneers and innovators in this space. I don't think most of us would be familiar with the term if it wasn't for you guys. So.
Thank you. But we're nothing like Disney, unfortunately.
Practicalities of taking AI to market in the media and entertainment space. Barriers to consumer acceptance, enterprise acceptance, privacy issues, things like that. Any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, ours was really on the editorial side. It was, again, I alluded to a moment ago, just this resistance that from traditional media outlets that the crowd could actually correctly source data. And in fact, the crowd makes a lot of mistakes, and in many instances, they don't get it right. And so trying to explain to a traditional newspaper sports writer that we also have a level of this, machine learning and natural language processing and artificial intelligence, if you will, on top of this that's trying to get to the right answer, was met with very, very high skepticism. And it was interesting because in the first couple of seasons, and I tend to refer to football, but we cover all sports, these were folks that were running out of money, running out of people, unable to source the data that we had, but wouldn't take it because they weren't convinced it was accurate. And it was accurate, demonstrably accurate. After a couple of seasons of that, they literally just capitulated because the demand for the content was so high that they had to have it. So selling that into the market and overcoming those objections. And by the way, we're giving it away for free. And we in the first couple of seasons, we could not give it away for free. And now we can. Big achievement. But and then going forward, it really speaks to the question of what is a verified source of information, and can you rely on the crowd, and I think the answer is you cannot rely on the crowd, and so you do have to have some level of artificial intelligence on top of that, and we may have stumbled into that.
Brilliant. Anyone else?
I have a sort of a question on top of that for Doug, but yeah, I'd be curious what Disney's found the response of consumers is to the term artificial intelligence. Like, is that, it feels like a cold word, like, whereas you're trying to use it for this really mushy experience, but has that been a pushback, or do you guys avoid using that term in the consumer world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we certainly avoid using it because that's not what Disney's about, right? Disney's not about technology; it's about the experience that we can provide to our guests.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, we are very conscious of those of that perception. I mean, Disney, there's the PR challenges we have. You know, as you do something like this in the park, we need to tell exactly. The guests need to know exactly what they're getting out of the experience when they walk into our parks. They may sign their life away and they buy that ticket, but that you don't. But but you're still. They need to have an expectation of what we're doing and make sure that we're providing value in the experience, no matter what's going on in the background. Now, that said, it is, you know, one of the big challenges we have. You know, we talk about AIs and characters and interacting with the guest, is making sure that experience is perfect, right? I mean, you take a character like Moana, and if you want to create an artificial version of that or AI version of that, it better be perfect. I mean, it has to be exactly what the guests remember about that character. And so when you're starting to integrate technologies like speech recognition, natural language understanding, and all these, computer vision to drive this, you can't have problems that you have with existing systems. So we had our fun chat about Alexa, and I really AI.
Please share that story.
So over Christmas holiday, I was with my family, and I really wanted to show the kids Merry Xmas, the guitar Christmas album. So I said, Alexa, can you play Merry Xmas? She comes back and says, sorry, cannot play Merry Christmas, kiss my ass. And of course, my kids thought that was hilarious, but it's the kind of thing that we just can't deal with at Disney, right? There's no room for that kind of error, and that's just even, right? So.
Sure there is, come on.
Let's make it entertaining. I'm sure there's an Amazon engineer that's working on that right now. That's a great point, though. All of you guys you're leveraging AI as a solution to enhancing the consumer experience at the end of the day. It's not like you're using AI as a technology that's looking for a problem. So that's, I think that's a great point. Privacy. We were talking about that a bit earlier. So these AI engines are learning very intimate details about us. How are you dealing with privacy, security, that kind of thing? How important is it, first of all? Yeah. Jonathan,
yes,
why
I guess I could.
You did a panel on this, I think, last week at CES.
So in terms of in an enterprise environment, obviously, servicing enterprise clients, privacy really, for lack of it really doesn't matter. As long as you're efficient, as long as you're saving money, as long as you do what it takes, I don't think it really matters from that space. The other extreme where I'm dealing with is really parents and kids, much like what Doug is doing. And that's where lots of regulations, rightfully so, they exist to protect the family and everyone else. So someone who's developing really customer-facing technologies, we have to be really careful because we cannot afford any kind of error on that side of things. So that means that the trick here is how do you leverage AI to really, really create engaging clients, engaging experience, but at the same time kind of avoiding the pitfall of doing something like one of the companies who sponsored Talking Barbie, something like that happened. So that's really just important to avoid that.
So I know we have about 5 minutes left. Are we going to take questions after that, or it's 5 and I think we wrap? Five and wrap? Okay, so where do you guys want to go next? We can talk about diversity. We had a good conversation about that earlier, or future uses of AI. Anyone have a preference on topic? Otherwise, I'm going to go big on diversity again because I love the subject.
It's your panel, Arjun.
All right. No. It's a team effort. Okay, so let's look at it from a finding and retaining talent perspective, because we know that is the hardest part in general. Just finding someone, finding a team that has deep competency in various flavors of AI. So, part one: how are you finding that talent? How are you retaining it? Are you retraining existing talent? Are you hiring kids out of school? How are you guys going about doing that? And then we'll close on the diversity topic. So. Someone want to take a hack at that?
I'll just say, one of the things I looked at I think obviously getting kids out of college right now, AI is is a big focus area. Most computer science programs, and we're in Southern California. We have 3 of the top 15 AI programs in the world, which is a pretty rich source of talent. LA doesn't get a lot of credit for having a big bench of technology talent, but
That's a great point.
that's a pretty good resource right there.
Absolutely. So in the time we have remaining, and we had a really good conversation about this earlier, and obviously the big elephant in the room is there's 6 dudes sitting up on the stage here, and we're having obviously a hard time finding great, diverse entrepreneurs, talent. Intel Capital has dedicated $125 million to funding entrepreneurs of diverse backgrounds. It's hard, right? So let's just take gender diversity as one part of that. Why aren't we finding girls in this space? And I know we had a couple good stories earlier, so one of you guys with kids maybe tee this up.
Sure, I'll offer the story I offered earlier. So I believe this is something that happens from the ground up, and it's something that at every level we need to be thinking about when we're presenting role models out in the world, right? And so the anecdote I shared earlier was that when I was, my daughter was 4 years old, I thought I was, super dad, always showing her Discovery Channel, all these different science programs. At some point, we were watching some program on rocket science, the big explosions. She got really excited about it, and I said, at some point, dear, you could be a rocket scientist. And I kid you not, she looked at me and she said, Dad, girls can't be scientists. And 4 years old, and as much attention as my wife and I have been paying to making sure that she didn't have that, it came out. And it struck me that every instant of their life up to that point is about identifying gender and defining roles relative to gender. And at that, it's something that, again, I think everything we do needs to be present these both options, because that's the only way they won't see the barrier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of anecdotes. So I'm also a father of 2 girls and a boy. I have a 16-year-old and a 9-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy, and both girls have watched the Cosmos series in its entirety multiple times. My son isn't interested. My older daughter is the captain of her high school robotics team, and yet when she was and she's taking calculus BC as a sophomore, she's a total math head. But when she was in middle school, at one of the back-to-school nights, she and my wife were talking to her science teacher, where she probably had one of the top scores in the class, and his comment was, and I can't remember the context, but I remember them coming home and telling me the science teacher said, girls just aren't that good at science. And this is it's sort of incredible in this day and age for a teacher in a major middle school to make a statement like that, but it just gives you a sense of just how deeply rooted some of these biases are. And they're ridiculous, And then one other comment of that sort of more innate to kind of how kids identify, maybe more along the lines of what Doug was sharing. When my daughter, who's now captain of her high school robotics team, was in middle school, she's in an all-girls high school. In middle school, there were no other girls doing robotics, and she did robotics as a 7th grader, but then didn't want to do it again in 8th grade because it was just her and a bunch of boys, and so she didn't do it. And so that's something that was sort of self-regulating. That's really a shame, and we felt bad about it, and it was one of the reasons I think that she really was motivated to be in an all-girls high school.
Absolutely. John?
Yeah, it's crazy. My anecdote was that I took my son and daughter to a coding camp last summer. My son was excited, my daughter wasn't. When my daughter went, she had a great time, and now she wants to go back. But why wasn't she excited about it? And why was my son? And it's these same subtle social signals that are coming in telling her it's not something she should be excited about it. But when she's exposed to it, she's excited about it. So I think it's fairly alarming that a 7-year-old girl is getting a social signal in 2016, telling her not to be excited about coding camp.
Absolutely. And Bill, I know your co-founder is, you have a female co-founder.
Yeah, so we have a female co-founder, and as a small business, I think we actually have a really special opportunity to instill a culture in our business from the earliest stages.
Yep.
That we're sort of accepting of. What we're always looking for is the best people, and sort of all the other stuff doesn't matter.
Right.
And again, because we're a sort of a new and smaller company, we can instill that in everybody that comes in and make sure it's part of our culture going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we find that diversity of ideas has a real impact to the bottom line at every level. So fantastic. I think we are out of time, right? Or do you want to take a minute to give everyone a wrap up, or we'll let you guide us? Oh, should we not take some questions then? Okay, let's do that. Alex Lightman. Sure. Right.
What is Moore's law now as it applies to VC and AI results?
Good question. Let me kind of try and break that down real quick. So first of all, we're a strategic and financial investor. So we are looking to make those financially sensible and rewarding investments that contribute to Intel's strategic aim. And the financial piece of it's much like every other Sand Hill Road VC who's looking for a risk-adjusted, outsized return, right? So we kind of define strategic in a couple ways now, because that's the core of it for us. The first is finding those really innovative and disruptive companies that we can certainly we can make investment in, we can learn from them, we can help them deliver on the promise of what they're trying to solve in the marketplace. But really, you're seeing us more and more look at deals where we can help the entrepreneur. So we have great resources. We have great engineering, product development resources. We have 3,000 people in a global sales and marketing organization that we can leverage to open the door for customers for early stage startups. And so we're able to very uniquely, I think, get very early stage companies that might not often get a audience with a CXO of a global 2,000 company, and we can walk them in the door and they could potentially be a customer for them. And so we have countless examples of that, but it's strategic both to us, but also how we can deliver some value back to the entrepreneur. Does that answer the question, I think?
What would you like to happen? What would you like to see the marketplace do in 2017 that would make the world, like what Intel wants?
Well, I don't think it's so much as what Intel wants in that regard. I think, again, it's finding those, groundbreaking teams of entrepreneurs, those groundbreaking technologies where, yes, to a degree, they align with our roadmap, right? So we're set up as an organization to mirror Intel as a parent. So we have, for instance, a client computing division. We have a client computing team that looks at deals that touch on that particular space, or a wearables team, or so on and so forth. So really, we're looking for disruptive technologies and experiences 5 years out, or several years out, right? They may not be immediately applicable to a business unit that thinks quarter to quarter, a year ahead, right? So we try to take a longer view to where things are going and add some value that way. So, a good question. Phil.
Well, right now I can't say a lot about it, but it is. I will say that it's a festival called State Festival. I don't know if you heard of it. Brilliant young entrepreneur who started it, and you'll be hearing more about it soon. We're just finalizing our plan to bring that over.
Excellent. I think we have a question right here.
Yeah, so a lot of times when people talk about AI, they just think about robotics, and we talk about popularizing those types of strategies. For example, they had the autonomous vehicles people here earlier, but nobody mentioned AI. So how, people in the same room, and something I feel like could be very valuable in other industries that they aren't thinking that way. So what are plans or strategies can be involved to get people outside industries to integrate this technology?
That's a good question. So how do people outside, are you asking about outside of the technology space to understand and adopt?
I think most people say AI robot.
Yep.
It can be used for so many other things, and I feel like it won't get popular unless other people see how I can use this.
Yeah.
My real basic app for autonomous vehicles, or I don't know, telling a toaster to make toast or something.
Right. Someone want to take a hack at that? Outside in? Go for it, Bill.
So AI is a really big field, and it means a lot of different things, and so there's no one answer to that, but there's a number of answers that are actually represented on the panel up here. There's the idea of AI as a better way to understand your audience. There's the idea of AI as a better way to interpret the data and the feedback that you're getting. There's the idea of AI as a way to communicate and interact with people for user interfaces, user experience, and things like that. So there's a plethora of things that can be done there. But generally, the idea is that we can begin to make computers do the things that we typically would assign to humans. So anytime you run across that and say, I think this could be a more efficient process, that's when you bring in sort of the AI guys.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes, please.
What would you say? There's always challenges implementing the next thing, and I find that there's tools missing in the process. So I'd love to see, what tool do you wish you had to achieve the goal that you want from AI in your perspective?
What tool do you wish you had to achieve your end goal? So maybe another rub on that is there's a lot of open source tools out there. We're talking about Caffe, TensorFlow, and all of that. So how do you use the tools out there to differentiate? What's missing? Okay.
So I'll
Please.
speak to that a little bit. So the not necessarily a specific tool that's missing, but one thing that I really love the trend of is tools becoming more ubiquitous and more tunable, right? So not being stuck to here's a object recognition pipeline where you put some images in and we have a canned set of data that comes back. Being able to provide your own data, to customize those tools, to really adapt them to the core problems that differentiate your organization. And Disney as a company, the problems that we deal with are very different because we're dealing with a diverse population of guests, in crowded, noisy environments. It's very different than say web-based application where you have a very constrained interface. So I think fundamentally making the tools as customizable and adaptable as possible to various problems is something that we still don't have the level of insight that we need.
Yeah, good question. I think we have time for one last question. You got it. Sorry. It's hard. I think these guys will attest to it. This stuff is really hard, right? And finding the talent to deliver on the promise is equally hard. I mean, we were talking about the Microsoft's head of research, Peter Lee, was saying that finding top class deep learning talent is about the same price of entry NFL quarterback, which is presumably in the 7-figure range, right? So very hard to find. And but anyone else want to add on that? I mean, it's hard. The stuff is hard to find the talent. Any other comments on that, though? Okay, I think in agreement, though. Feel free to disagree.
Well, I'd also say, with the APIs that I was talking about earlier, there's a little bit of a lower barrier to entry
Right.
of people who can go out there and say, I'm in the AI space. I'm leveraging, Intel Nirvana, or I'm leveraging IBM Watson, and I'm creating this AI experience. And all they have to do is, pick up a manual and start using some API calls. So it's probably easier to call yourself an AI company today than 10 years ago.
That's a great point. The democratization of it, effectively. Yeah, great one. So I think we're done then, right? All right. Please join me in thanking our panel.